Okay. Well, it looks like we're live. Okay. Hoping I'm getting echo. I got double audio going. Oh no, it should be fine. Can't hear anything. Let me see. Okay, we're not good. I opened up another audio channel just in case my friend calls. Yes, that way I can keep the conversation going. There. Okay. In between shots, what am I doing? That might be a little bit too loud. Let me see what that sounds like. Okay, it sounds good. All right, no problem. All right, so enjoy the visuals while I talk a little bit about what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to continue where I left off in my video yesterday. As you know, it was the mutualism versus radical objectivism. So I spelled out some strategies that you can do that's doable now, either through radical objectivism or through Pierre-Joseph's Proudhon's mutualism. And I talk about things like scalability. Can you do it on a small scale? I think you can do both on the small scale. But larger scale might be a little more difficult. Yeah, because of the institutional capture. So it'd be a little bit harder to do that. Large scale, it is. Let me go ahead and get my notes. Okay, there's my notes. See, I prepare for my streams. I don't know about what other people do, but I'm all ready. So we talked about mutualism. It's kind of like a socialism, but without the state, kind of. They create these little cooperative. Let's see, let me get rid of that. I don't like that. What was it? That was a mistake. Anyway, let's go down and talk about, let's see, strategy at number 7. That's where we want. Yeah, let's go down there. Scrolling down. So, okay, so Pierre-Joseph Proudhon. So just to give you another background of the guy, Pierre-Joseph Proudhon, 1809 to 1865. Obviously, he's a French philosopher, and he's a founder of something called mutualism. So it's kind of like an anarchist theory, and it's pretty much advocating a society based on voluntary cooperation and reciprocal exchange. Okay, so far that's good. Voluntary exchange. And then he goes on to talk about things like worker ownership of the means of production. That's kind of the socialist aspect of it. So he's like one of maybe the first described anarchists, I think. But he argued that a free market without a state intervention or exploitation. So he argued for this free market without any state intervention. Well, that's good. So I guess what would he advocate for, like third-party private arbiters and stuff? I don't know. Let's read on. So where the goods are based on what do you call labor time cost principle? Is that like the labor theory of value? Is that the same? Sounds like it. So let's look at mutualism again, kind of sum it up in Proudhon's sort of core framework. I guess we kind of update this in more modern practice. Okay. So I show some examples here. four examples we'll look at in some detail, and we'll discuss that as we do it, as we look at those corporate examples. We have Spain, Canada, and they have the global top 300. They have the Italian corporative ecosystem. I never heard of some of these places. Okay, so mutualism. So it does, like I said, it offers the anarchist strategy, and it is like radical objectivism. It is centered on reciprocity and mutual credit, and they call it worker owned, plural worker, instead of individually owned cooperatives. And they have something called federated associations. So that'd be more on a larger scale, federations that eliminate these federated associations, eliminate rent, interest, and wage exploitation. But all the same time, supposedly it's retaining markets based on labor value equivalence. So that's like the labor theory of value. I don't know. What do you think? Sounds like it. But at the same time, it rejects both the state socialisms. It rejects the state intervention, and then but all at the same time, it rejects full capitalism. I don't know how you can do that. So it's still socialistic in nature, but without the state. How can you have full capitalism, but it's state socialism? I mean, how can you reject state socialism, but then reject full capitalism? If you really want to promote the individual rights, you would be for full-on capitalism. Well, why was he not full capitalist? Strange. Did he believe in property ownership? He said property is limited to occupancy, like homesteading, and use. He claims it's no absentee ownership of land or capital. And he goes on to claim that credit is mutual and interest-free via people's banks or labor notes. Okay, so production, according to him, occurs through voluntary worker associations that federated for coordination. Federate. Put that in red. Okay, so far, so interesting, I guess. Because that was, I guess the argument here is this kind of mutualism can be done on both small scale and large scale because it's more cooperative. It advocates more cooperation between the institutes, and it can work within the institutes. So of course this federate the coordination, this contrasts sharply with the individualist cluster. Yeah. See, but I'm radical objectivist. I believe in the individual cluster. I don't believe in the workers plural, like he calls it voluntary work. I believe it's a voluntary association between individuals. So that's where they contrast sharply between radical objectivism. But can radical objectivism scale at a large scale? I say have a small to medium scaling. Can it work through the institutes? So let's go down here and look at the strategy of application. So when you integrate, like the integrated objectivist ANCAP agorist approach, it'll audit state interfaces and it could shift to cash crypto barter, form trust-based networks for arbitration and trade. And I guess these can scale private infrastructures, insurance pools, right? Smart contracts. And of course, while at the same time using agorism, living counter-economically. So the main difference between mutualism and radical objectivism is that radical egoism reinforces via unapologetic self-assertion. Treat everything as a tool for your own flourishing. I'm just kind of summing up what I talked about in the video. You can go watch the video. It's like over a 20-minute video. I want to get to the examples today. Okay, mutualist strategy is a little bit different. It's more constructive and prefigurative. So in other words, you build on the new society in the sort of the cusp or shell of the old, or husk. I was going to say husk. Through immediate legal or gray voluntary associations. So again, the recap: the core taxes would be farm worker cooperatives, house co-ops, then establishing mutual banks, credit systems, creating federations of these associations for large scale. So when you create the federation, that's more done on the large scale. So there's a two-pronged approach with mutualism. You can work at a small and large, which in that case is a little more dynamic than radical objectivism, which is more about evasive and being apart from the state. Mutual aid, okay, and practicing mutual aid in daily life. That is that. So always with mutualism, the implementation always starts small and local. But they also agree with the idea of no petitioning or voting. So instead, they advocate for like direct economic succession. So advocating for alternatives like digital tools, platforms, co-ops, and blockchaining and stuff like that, and transparent mutual credit ledgers. So the hybrid potential is agorists. They can run the co-ops in the white market while routing excess value through counter economic channels. But mutualists can adopt the egoist framing by treating their associations as just temporary union of egoists held together only by mutual benefit. It just doesn't really, mutualist doesn't really advocate the individual so much more than worker. That's the socialist aspect. Okay, so small scale, large scale, aggressive versus passive. Let's see, spreading and adopting. Kind of looking down here. The feasibility under the current system. We covered that before. Don't want to cover any more of that. Large scale examples. So here are the large scale examples. So let's take a look at some of these examples and see how it stands up. So some of the questions you want to think about while we're doing this: can this be scalable, small, large? Hoppian covenant communities, has this ever been tested? Well, we got some examples here. Let's see. And if so, how? Does it have aggressive approach or passive, above ground or more visible? And then widespread adoption of radical egoism. Is it doable? And I said in the video, not really under the current state of the education, culture, political climate. It's too, the institutes have been captured. You have to create alternative institutes then. Okay, so let's take a look at Mondragon Corporation, Spain. What do they have to offer? There's an example of large-scale corporation. Let's see. There we go. Let's take a look at that. I'll make the screen a little bigger. There's Mondragon. It's innovation. Humanity at work. Do they have work with us? Did they have a philosophical statement or something? We're a different way of working on experience that puts people at the heart of the business, not the individual. Professionals, world-leading cooperative reality with over 70,000 jobs and presence in range of sectors. Benchmark for innovation and biggest employer in Basket County. Okay, from industry to food, from finance to research, whatever you're looking for, there's a job for you at Mondragon. Me, except cookies. Cooperatives. I don't see any statement by them, really. Professionals? Let me click on that. Maybe there's something. I don't know. Nothing's popping up yet. Okay. So what do they make here? They make power converter, electrical engineer, auxiliary. Almakian, whatever that is. I don't pronounce those words. These are all the people in this cooperation. Man, I don't want to go through all that. It's too many. Wow, there's so many. So what did I say about that? Okay, that was the currency. I don't want to talk about that. Example. So, Mondragon cooperation in Spain. So the archetype of a scalable worker co-op federation, as you can see here. So scalable. Okay, so as of 2024, it comprises 81 to 92 autonomous cooperatives across industry, retail, finance, and knowledge divisions. So it employs, like they said, 70,000 to 70,500 people, the largest employer in Basque region, fifth largest private employer in Spain. So the aggregate sales, they reached like 11 billion euros with the EBITDA of 1.7 billion, investments of 376 million euros, and a strong research and development. 2012 full-time staff, 201 million euros spent, 382 patent families. International presence includes 104 production plants in 37 countries and sales at 150 plus. It survived multiple crises, e.g. 2008 and COVID, via internal labor mobility. Aha, okay, there's something. Internal labor mobility. What does that mean? Where's my home page there? Let's see. Home. There it is. Okay, so members transfer between co-ops. Okay. So all these co-ops, you can just, transfer between either one of those. That's how you can survive, I guess. And solidarity funds and inter-cooperation. Co-ops and profit support those in loss without external bailouts. Aha. Now that's interesting. Without external bailouts. So no government handout, no government interference, apparently. And this is how they run the governance. It's a one member, one vote. Surpluses fund education, innovation, and community. Oh, there's the socialist aspect, the community. This is mutualism in action. The worker ownership federated scale yields competitiveness without absentee capital. Okay, so that's a good example of mutualist. Hold on. There it is. I dropped my mouse pad. That's not a tech issue. Okay. So that's an example of a mutualist federation right there. It's a conglomerate of federations, and you can just transfer between them. And this is mutualism in action, apparently. So worker ownership. So this looks like is an example that it is doable in large scale. So that's possible. I think Casimir talked about doable, but he's last time I heard he was talking about, is he Protestant or something, or was talking with Christians about the libertarianism because they both have the same or share the same principles, something like that. There it is. So we can say yes to this one. So I'll say yes. Okay, let's go to the next one now. Let me get a space right there. Okay, so the next one, is this it? Oh, I can't. Let's see. Financial services. Choose your province or state. Okay. Oh, we'll choose that one. Quebecois. I wonder if Jean-Francois Guélepi is around. Okay. We don't need to make fun of him. So the next one is this French group, Desjardins Group, Quebec, Canada. Again, it's another federated mutual financial co-op. Let's see. Now, do they have about us? Who we are, governance and democracy, our history. Oh my goodness. Do I want to read all this? Alfonso or whatever. So let's see. Our history. There's a lot here. This is very big federation. Okay, so the history rooted in community. So this is the socialist aspect of it, of this federation. But it's without interference from the state. So it's all like it falls within mutualism's principle. Okay, Desjardins' group history is inexorably linked to that of society. Okay, for over a century, the development of its network, its diverse activities have accompanied the social and economic growth of the regions in which it operates. So it can work within the framework of the current society, even in the current political climate. So no one in Canada's largest financial groups, not now one of Canada's Desjardins has always stayed true to the philosophy of its founder and co-founder to contribute to the well-being of individuals and communities. Okay. So, contribute to the common good. So they still think of people as a collective, though. They still think people as a collective, sort of. Because they call them individuals and community instead of just calling contribute to the well-being of an individual. It should say that. But I don't know. Okay, so it was founded 1844. Okay, so the first steps after founding obtaining legal recognition for it. Okay, so this was, so it's been around for a long time, gaining strength. Okay, renewal expansion. I don't care about all this. They have a historical society. I mean, do we have any examples of... how come this didn't go through? Italian corporate. Looks like it's not there anymore. Yeah. I was trying to find it, but let's try to do this. This is the Italian one. Hey, no, I don't want that. Case study. Well, we can look at that, definitely. Okay, so before we move to Italy, let's read about Quebec. Desjardins. Okay, so Federated Mutual Financial Co-ops. It's a credit union network. This is what we were talking about earlier. Pierre-Joseph was talking about federated mutual or credit unions. So in 2025, it had $510 billion in assets, 10 million members, clients, and almost 60,000 employees. And it created like $4 billion in surplus earnings before member dividends. 638 million redistributed to members and community. So it's a tier 1 capital ratio of 23%, and it operates as a cooperative group with local autonomy linked to central structures for scale and insurance and wealth management. So it is North America's largest cooperative financial group. Six to eight all round globally. And the mutual credit principles enables interest minimizing, and member-focused lending and resilience comes from individual resources and democratic control. This shows mutualism scaling finance without usury or state monopoly. So there you go. There's another example of one. Maybe do we have any examples of these kinds of things in radical objectivism? Maybe that'd be a good video to do. Because I didn't find any. Maybe there are some. If you can think of some, let me know. All right. So let's move on to the next example. And that would be Italy. The Italian cooperative ecosystem, Emilia Romagna. Okay, here it is. There he is. All roads lead to Bologna. Italian cooperative networks. Sorry if I messed up the names. Okay, so here, what does this say? Does it have a byline? Okay, so the proverb, all roads lead to Rome, refers to Roman Empire's road system converging to the capital. But as for Italy's cooperative system, Bologna takes the central role. So this region has emerged as the homeland of Italian cooperation, displaying an impressive network of cooperatives that have successfully integrated their operations into broader economy. Integration. So it integrates. So far, it has a seamless integration into the economy, but all three of these. What about radical egoism? Doesn't it? Has it successfully integrated with these kind of institutes? I think, I don't know. The prominence is underpinned by the country's democratic foundations, which deeply influences both public and private legislation extending to national cooperative framework. I mean, this is kind of more pragmatic approach. Again, I think Casimir talked about this on the last stream with Liquid Zulu. He talked about the more pragmatic approach, a little bit of pragmatism, a little bit of salt, a little bit of ingredient. I guess that's a start. If you can do it like this, and eventually you can get to radical objectivism. But this is one way to do it. What we're talking about here. Okay. Law and policy. Let's take a look. So listen, Article 45 of the Italian Constitution expressly recognizes the social function of cooperation. The Republic recognizes the social function of cooperation with the mutualistic nature and without purposes of private speculation. The law promotes and encourages growth through the most suitable means and ensures with appropriate controls. The law. Which law? With appropriate controls, its nature and purposes. Free translation from it. Recognizing the cooperative paradigm in the highest normative body, emphasizing its long history and promote a role in Italy's socio-economic fabric. It underlines cooperation as a foundational tool of the democratization process based on mutually and regional development. Mutually. So, all right, so it's mutual, it's a voluntary association without any state interference. Let me see if I can find any more about this. Long before, democracy, I don't care about democracy. Over time, cooperatives were subject to multiple reforms via dynamic evolutionary process influenced by socioeconomic and political trends. Of course. The significance of each edge in Boffanti's metaphoric cooperative triangle, characterized by variable geometry among service management, democracy, and solidarity. Okay. The multifaceted cooperative identity and the myriad legal resources in Italy allow their framework to be highly adapted to the market and build complex networks with their peers. Oops. Okay, so I'm just highlighting that. Build complex networks with their peers. But aren't they kind of doing that in New Hampshire? Okay, so Where were we on the here? Okay. Let's see. So this Emilia Romagna historically is 30% of the regional GDP from co-ops, dense consortia, supply shared procurement, finance training, and political representation. Federations pull 3% of profits for ecosystem support, enabling intergenerational resilience via indispensable reserves. And worker and social co-ops dominate here, proving mutualism's federated model scales services, manufacturing, and retail without hierarchy. So which do you prefer? The hierarchy? I mean, the hierarchies naturally exist anyway. So it's unavoidable. You can't avoid hierarchy. But they think a hierarchy doesn't exist, but it does. I mean, don't they have a CEO or anything? They obviously have a founder, but they don't have any leader here. Of course, they have a hierarchy. Let's see. Message from the president. Job. Let me see about working. That's the French model. See our job openings. Teleworking. Depending on your position, you can enjoy more free time by working from home and eliminating a long commute. Who wants to work at home? Depressing. Let's see. Work-life balance. With your manager's approval, you can... Manager. There's a hierarchy right there. Your manager's approval. You can adjust your work a day based on your personal obligations. Okay, so they do have a manager. So there is a hierarchy here. So I don't know how they can avoid a hierarchy, but have a hierarchy in the. I can't find. I can't find their website. Doesn't. Why invest? Yeah, so they have a hierarchy. What are they talking about? I can't access the page. Dead link. No, yeah, we'll go back. Sorry. Okay, so there's another example of mutualism at work, federated group at work. It says without hierarchy, but I don't believe that. It seems like there's always going to be a hierarchy. I mean, they just said there's a manager. You got to have a manager or a trainee or something. So there's always going to be a hierarchy. That hierarchy is unavoidable. So I don't know why they always talk about how hierarchy is the thing when always hierarchies form no matter what. Maybe did some teacher prove that in the classroom or something? Okay, so yeah, retail without hierarchy. So going on to the last example that I have here, and we'll go into some details about some other things if you want to. Let's see, like Global Top 300 ICA World Cooperative Monitor 2025. So here's the World Cooperative Monitor. Here's what he's talking about right here. That's what I'm talking about here. So aggregates show mutualist adjacent co-ops, mutualists at 2.8 trillion turnover. Cooperatives employ 280 million people. That's 10% of the global workforce, apparently. Agriculture, 35%. Insurance, 31%. And finance dominate. Europe and Americans lead. Worker co-ops are underrepresented in the absolute top tier. Wonder why that is. Worker co-ops are underrepresented in the absolute top tier. Only four listed. Wonder why. I wonder where they work. Well, we see what countries they work in. But the model federates effectively in credit unions, retail, and producer associations. 2025's International Year of Cooperatives, Amplified Visibility and Policy Support. Let's read a little here. Yeah, what is that? There's the partners. Oh, team and advisory. Let's see if there's a hierarchy here. Wonder who the leader in this group is. Advisory board. How can you participate? Create your own monitor. Create a national and regional ranked based on the World Cooperative Monitor. Okay. Create your own monitor. Or just create your own president. What is it? WCM history. Let's take a look. So here's the history of it. 2012, first edition. The cooperatives. That sounds like some Borg thing. Some commie thing. Let's see. The World Cooperative Monitor reports on the world's largest cooperatives and mutuals and groups of cooperatives and mutuals. You're repeating yourself. Including rankings of the top 300 and sectorial analysis. Each year, the World Cooperative Monitor builds upon the research and data collection of the previous years, continuing, refining, and improving the methodology and data collection strategies. So as this 10-year timeline shows, the report has explored various themes over 10 years, from sector analysis to capital structure to the contribution of cooperatives to the UN Sustainable Development. Oh, no. Oh, dear. To the contribution of cooperatives, the Borg, to the UN Sustainable Development Goals. Yeah. Of course. I don't need to go into the SDGs. We know enough about that already. We know what those are all about. Why go over it again and again? It's just redundant. Just put it away. It's bad. This work has resulted in the report being pointed to multiple times as the UN General Assembly Secretary Antonio Guterres as an important resource for demonstrating the impact cooperatives have on resolving global challenges. I mean, as long as it's a voluntary association between these federations and there's no government interference, no outside bailouts or anything like that, I'm fine with that. But I don't like the fact that they have to incorporate that. Look at that. Let's zoom in on that. Right down there. And look at that evil right there, that evil circle, that hermetic circle staring you right in the face. Yeah, that's the only problem, because some of these places can be captured this way. And it will undermine the whole federation. That would undermine it right there, there's 3 sustainable goals. Because that would be counter pretty much to my principles anyway. I wouldn't want to see they're really hitting it hard, especially right during COVID. They really were pushing this. I mean, they're pushing a lot of things during COVID, but that was one of them. But if you noticed, lately you haven't heard much about the 17 sustainable goals. You haven't heard anything about that at all lately. At least I haven't. So it just sort of fell out of favor. No one even talks about it anymore. But that could be a problem when you get these voluntary federation associations. It doesn't seem like they believe in the principle of private property, because if they believe in property ownership, they would be able to kick out this cancer here in their federation. Yeah, because that's what that's what property ownership does. It excludes. So, but since this is owned by the cooperatives, where the Borg or the Volksgemeinschaft, and it says a democratic process too, so they vote. They vote in these federations. So I haven't read anywhere, and when I did this research, I didn't see anything about the majority rule when voting. They do say there's voting, so that's another minus against mutualism. As you can see, it's not immune from cancer. It's not immune from it. So that's a tough one there. So let's see. The first one, yeah, I mean, and the second one, yeah, I'll go with yes. This one, the Italian one, I don't remember much about that one. This is the problem, though. Overall, no. Save that. Because SDGs. Okay. So let's keep going a little bit here. Let's see. Let me check something real quick. That he left. I don't think he's gonna play. Okay. So to continue on about this small, medium scale emerging vectors. We covered the four I wanted to cover here of these federations, the cooperatives. I mean, even though they don't have any government interference, it doesn't seem like, and they claim they don't have a hierarchy. Those claims I'm skeptical of, because they seem that they do have some sort of interference, because the SDGs are interference that you don't want. And they do have voting. There's like a democratic process, and there is a hierarchy. Hierarchy, and it's just hard to avoid. You can't avoid that. It's impossible. So, again, this mutualism seems to thrive more locally. The federations can survive, on a larger scale, but like U.S. worker co-ops, there's like 1,300 firms, tripled in the last decade. Each have like a 806 million revenue with 16,000 workers, 34% growth in firms, 100% workforce growth since 2020. And for traditional small business, driver platform co-ops, ride share, enable larger units, 1,000 to 3,000 workers, growth via niches, consulting, care, delivery, but still micro compared to Mondragon and Desjardins. Okay. I guess if you wanted to push radical objectivism and anarcho-capitalism, you could do it this way on a small scale first. See if you can establish federations, and then eventually you just break it down from there. You can break it down from federations to smaller groups and eventually get to the individual, because it doesn't seem like the cooperatives are really individually based. It's not based on the individual. It's based on the cooperatives, the Borg, even though there's no government involved. Then they have platform co-ops. So digital mutualism, e.g. Up and Go Cleaning, Stock Skis, Stock Media, Robin Food Delivery. And it's scalable in theory via apps, DEOs, but limited in practice. Capital shortages, governance friction. Yeah, there's that friction right there. Competition via VC platforms hinder head-to-head growth. Yeah, the competition is good. Success in niches, repairs, local services, via scale out. Networks, not monopolies. Networks. Many fail to reach critical mass. I wonder why. Mutual credit systems again. Sardex, Italy, Work, Switzerland, Let's, time banks. So firm level evidence shows resilience. Counter cyclical lending, lower default risk for SMEs during downturns, lower risk. Local regional scale, digital versions could federate further but remain complementary, not primary. Digital versions could federate further. I think that's the problem. The flaw with this method of mutualism is the fact that, like I just pointed out, just on the surface flaw is that it can be infiltrated by grifters, and they still have a voting capabilities. Let's see. Where did I say? Yeah, governance is one member, one vote, but those one members, one vote can be a collective vote, a majority vote. So that's the problem. It's still run as a democracy. It still runs by the vote system. I think one of them, the federations, doesn't have a voting system, but this one did, the Mondragon. It's an easy name to remember. And it's like, it's fueled by the collective worker, the worker ownership, instead of the private individual ownership. It doesn't really talk about personal ownership, self-ownership. It doesn't talk about that. It talks about worker ownership. So yeah, so there are flaws in this, and it could be, as you can see, be easily corruptible. Okay, I might change those to no. I put yes up there, but I'll probably change it to no. Let's see. What do we talk about here? So enablers. So apparently, so going on to like analytical factors for scalability. Continue here. Enablers. Why it works large scale. Federation. Indivisible resources. Autonomy preserves mutualist ethos. Consortia provide capital, markets, and stability. So Mondragon's labor mobility and the Italian consortia. Legal institutional fit, co-op laws, tax advantages, procurement preferences, lower entry barriers, via pure agorism, gray markets. So yeah, so lower entry barriers. Yeah, you know, it's not as difficult to get in. But you do have the gray markets though that work. Resilient metrics, stable employment. Mondragon rarely lives off members. Countercyclical credit, members return over investor extraction. Tech and cultural tailwinds. So 2025 IWC blockchain for transparent mutual lenders. Reciprocity appeals and polarized climates. Reciprocity appeals. So yeah, this does lend itself to more pragmatism. And let me see something here. What am I looking at? Okay. Let's see something. Okay, I'm going to look up something really quick. Uh, so I don't say anything. I'm looking at consequentialism. Because I was just thinking about that. For some reason, and consequentialism is normative ethical theory holding that the morality of an action is determined solely by its outcomes, right? Aiming to maximize overall good. So this is kind of what this reminds me of. This mutualism. Happiness, pleasure. Key principles include acting to produce the best consequences. Well, acting the best according to whom? That's subjective. Best? How do you know they're best? How can you predict their best? Impartiality and sometimes ends justify the means logic. Okay, yeah. So this is very utilitarianism pros the greatest good for the greatest number. So it's not, like I said, mutualism doesn't seem to be individually focused. Hedonism focuses on maximizing pleasure and minimizing pain. Ethical egoism prioritizes actions that bring the best consequence for the individual performing the action. Ethical altruism prioritizes action that maximizes positive outcomes for others. Yeah, that's what they're talking about, ethical altruism. That's what those federations seem to represent. Role consequentialism argues that the action is right if it conforms to a rule that leads to the best consequence. Well, how do you know the rule is going to do that? If you don't have the right kind of grounded, if the rule is not grounded in right principles, how is it going to confirm that it leads to the best consequences? If it's built on, it's this rule. Rules can be broken. It's not like natural laws. Rules can be broken. You know, what's the expression musicians always say? You got to know the rules before you can break them. So they're just sort of arbitrary, based on floating abstractions, it seems. Key principles, outcome focused. The ends justify the means. Instead of the individual who believes that, what's the axiom? I'm the means to my own end. That's what I was thinking. Okay, maximization. Actions should maximize valuable outcomes. Valuable, again, how do you know? Valuable to whom? That's subjective. I don't know what valuable. That could be, it could be anything. Yeah, divine valuable outcomes. Impartiality. Everyone's happiness or interest counts equally. No. Or interest counts equally? No. Some are equal, more equal than others. Some interests are more equal. It depends on what you mean by everyone's happiness. I'm not good with syllogisms, but a lot of this seems faulty. Let's see. Predicting consequences. It is often difficult to foresee the results of action. Yeah, that's I just said that. Measuring good. I just said this too. Comparing different types of benefits or happiness. Huh? Ethical trade-offs. Yeah, can justify. That's right. Minority or the minority, the individual. Okay, so that's what I was thinking of. This is very. Let me go back to my screen there so you can enjoy it. Yeah, that's very consequentialist. So it does have that mutualism. So far, I can see how mutualism could be a gateway to anarcho-capitalism and radical objectivism, but I can't see mutualism working in the long run. This thing would just fall apart because it's so egalitarian. I mean, utilitarian and consequentialist. That just seemed like it would just, yeah. I mean, you can just get a group of people in there and just sort of start moral mining for votes. Like the SDGs can get in there and infect and destroy the whole thing. However, radical individualism, radical egoism, and I'm a means to my own end, and private property ownership, self-ownership, you can easily exclude like an SGD. Just say we don't count the votes. We count the fact that SGDs are based on faulty premises, and it's just overall evil. So we just kick it out and say bye. It's not good for the Federation. I don't know. What do you guys think? Why did I say that? Need some more coffee. That's why. Oh no, I'm out. Refuel. No, I know what I guess I know what I'm talking about. What a way to deflate the whole. Okay, barriers where it lags. Okay, let's see if I'm right here. Let's see. Of course I'm right. Let's see. Capital access, no equity markets, reliance on retained earnings, mutual banks, slower hyper growth versus capitalist platforms. I prefer the capitalist platforms, faster growth. Governance, democratic deliberation can delay decisions in competitive sectors. Yeah, because it's still based, like I said, that's his main weak point. Weak point is it's based on the democratic process of voting instead of just based on individuals' ownership, self-ownership, private property, where you can exclude something that doesn't agree with what the Federation has already agreed on in the first place, on first principles. A worker co-op rarity at ultra scale. Producer consumer models dominate because they align easier with existing supply chains. Okay, work with what you have. Don't work with what you don't have. Cultural, political requires trust building. U.S. lags due to weaker ecosystems. Okay, so small versus large scaling. So we have proven that both micro for quick reciprocity egoist unions, regional via federation, national, global via networks, unlike agorism's underground density requirement. Mutualism grows visibly and legally. Yeah, because it's more pragmatist, consequentialist, utilitarian. People, okay, reducing repression risks while building parallel infrastructure. Okay, so the strategic implication for mutualism versus the prior triad, which is the, what we're talking about, we're comparing here, anarcho-capitalism and agorism and radical objectivism. Strategic implications of mutualism favors passive, above-ground construction over aggressive confrontation or full underground evasion. In some cases, I don't know. I mean, aggressive confrontation. I thought the whole principle behind objectivism is or anarcho-capitalism, to avoid conflict. So there's a trade-off here. That's where it can reconcile mutualism with radical objectivism, is where you can engage in a trade-off, avoiding a conflict. Full underground evasion. Visibility is an asset. Legitimacy, recruitment, hybrids, co-ops, routing gray value, plus egoist framing as unions of egoists. Well, that's that's still a collectivist thing. If you frame it that way, if you say union of egoists, that's still a collective. You're still thinking of a collective hive mind. Under 2026 conditions, surveillance regulation, it is more institutionally doable than pure counter economics. Co-ops already hold trillions of globally. Yeah, I guess that's what that works this week. Maybe this federation kind of idea might work next week. Leverage existing credit unions, legal forms. Large-scale success hinges on federation ecosystems, not conquest. Well, it should be conquest, because doing it this way, this pragmatic consequentialist way, that's not working. That it suffers the same problem as all the other pragmatist ideas. It complements the triad. Use mutualist co-ops as legal on-ramps for agorist edges or egoist motivation. Reciprocity serves my interest. Okay, reciprocity serves my interest, the axiom. Reciprocity serves my interest. Well, okay, Robinson Crusoe and Fridays, we know that analogy. So yeah, because if Friday is good at crafting a spear and he can spear fishes, and Crusoe is good at collecting water, well, reciprocity might serve my self-interest, because he can catch the fish and I can provide the water. But we can agree. Crusoe and Friday can agree on that trade-off and avoid conflict to sustain participation. So yes. So in the sum here, mutualism is empirically scalable today at small, regional, and in financial services, but also large. We talk about the federations. It outperforms the individualist cluster in visible institutional growth and resilience metrics, but trades some profit maximizing speed for reciprocity on democratic stability. Democratic stability, that's an oxymoron. Democracies aren't stable. Execution remains network first. Yeah, network. The people first. Start local associations. Okay. Voluntary associations. Federate at scale. And demonstrate superiority. Okay, well, yeah, we can do that with our philosophy. This is doable now. Data confirms momentum without needing systemic collapse. Okay, so we covered all of this. I think I covered in pretty good detail this and what the flaws are in mutualism. I think overall, I've already said why I think I still favor the three-pronged approach. I think I'm going to go with radical objectivism, anarcho capitalism, agorism. Has it ever been tested? Well, we've talked about medieval Iceland before. And we already know the how, so I'm not going to talk about that again. Don't want to be redundant. So yeah, I think I'm going to go with this because, like I said, the problem with this, it is very socialistic, but it's still, because it still relies on democracy and relies on the one man, one vote fallacy principle. And because of it can be easily effective. It's not the principle is not it's not based on the principle of private ownership and self ownership, and because of that, they won't exclude. Because why would they accept in SDGs in their federations? Yeah. Then why would they accept that cancer into their federation? They should be able to exclude that and say, okay, this is not good. It's not based on good principles. It's just communism in disguise. Get rid of it. Because if you're based on the private ownership of the individual, then they have a right to exclude this. But if there's one man, one vote, the majority, that one man, one vote can become a majority, and the majority can win, and they can implement these cancer SDGs, and it can destroy the whole federation from within. It's that possibility, because it doesn't have any checks or balances to prevent this from happening. It seems like it's just too easy to be a grifter or a spook. Who was that guy that called them spooks or opportunist? They can just infiltrate and destroy it from within. It's too easier. Radical objectivism is based on better principle that you can just reject this. You can form a community, a private community based on private ownership, and then you can just exclude this kind of shit from your community. So yeah, I'm going to go with radical objectivism. I think in the long run, this is doable. The mutualism is just short run. It has high time preferences in a way, you might say. I don't know. That doesn't make any sense, does it? High time preferences. Okay, we'll say high time preferences over here. I don't know if that makes any sense at all. And then, but this has long-term consequences, positive consequences. Seems like this is more doable. It's also more flexible. And according to objectivism, which is open-ended, it's open to accept new knowledge that may challenge old definitions, but it doesn't negate the old definition. That kind of thing. So yeah, so I'm going to go with this radical objectivism, anarcho-capitalism for the win. The hell with mutualism. I don't think I care for it. So we'll just erase this. No, thank you. No. Stupid. All right. Let's see. What time is it? How long me do this? An hour? Was there anything else I wanted to cover? There was some stuff I wanted to cover with private currencies as agorist money. Maybe say that for another time. Because there's a lot there. I don't know if I want to do anything. And Alan's not here. He's gone, so we don't have to worry about doing any game tonight. So I can just end it now. It's 9:30. Been doing it for an hour, and that's about it. I hope you found it informative. Let me know. Share this out with other people. Tell me what I got wrong. I'm sure I got something wrong. I'm still kind of new at this, but I kind of gave my sort of half-assed reasons. I don't want to deflate the whole thing, but I did give my reasons why I prefer radical objectivism over mutualism. After studying mutualism and looking at the different examples of federations, it's too flawed. It's too fragile. It's too easy to destroy, and it's too brittle. It doesn't seem to be based on really solid principles. It's kind of just flaky. It seems kind of like floaty abstraction-y, like kind of whimsical kind of thing. That's the vibe I'm getting from it. But that's not very. Anyway, that's all for today. And we will see you next time in the next video, in the next topic. I could cover the private currencies for next time. There's a lot there. I didn't really do that last week. But I'm just kind of trying out these discussion podcasts, see if anyone shows up and talks about it. And go ahead, you know what to do. Leave the like and subscribe, and check me out on let's see, where is it? On X. I'm on X, and my name is. I'll tell you what. I will put a link to my X account into the chat here. Paste. There. Go check out my X account. And if you have any questions, or if you have any like requests for future topics we can talk about. Yeah, I don't really go into like what Liquizilla does. He's beyond me at this point, but I'm getting there, just slowly but surely. Just keep working at it. Keep your brain active. Don't be passive, and always keep working at this, because it's a long road. It took me a long time to get here, and I said I'm really enjoying this idea been talking about here, radical objectivism. I think it's a really good path forward. All right, enough of that. So, have a good weekend, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.